What's going on, everybody? Welcome to 505 Interview Series. Big D coming at you from, the 505 Summer Lounge. Excited to have you all here. Excited for my guest tonight. But before we get started, I remind everybody, click the link tree that's pinned in the comment section over on YouTube or down in the description and go support my advertisers, sponsors, and preferred retail partners. They help continue to keep all the programming going on the show, and your support goes a long way in helping to make sure that, we keep the show going. So go use the exclusive promo codes only available to my viewers out there, and save yourself some coinage. Also, I want to invite all of you to come back next Monday night for my birthday bash extravaganza. Got a great show next week. I've got so much stuff to give away. That's how we're celebrating my birthday, and it's part of my give back to you guys in the community. I want to make sure that you guys have a wonderful time on my birthday, so I'm going to give a lot of stuff away. Got a lot of great cigars donated by manufacturers. Got a lot of great accessories donated by my accessory sponsor, Zyphy. So it should be a great time, so come join in. Next Monday night, we'll be giving away stuff all stream long. So without further ado, we bring on our guest tonight. Man, he is the brand owner of one of the premier luxury boutique brands out there. Really just hits the hammer on the head with everything that this guy puts out. He's got a stick right now that had just dropped not too long ago. That right now it's going to be tough to beat. But it is in my top 3 right now for cigars of the year for 2024. I'm super excited to have him on. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the brand and anything else. But without further ado, from J. London Cigars, Jonathan Fiant. Welcome, sir.
Hello. Good to be here.
Glad
How
to
you
have
doing
you,
this
man.
evening?
I am excellent. Glad to have you on. I throw that introduction out to you, but I'll hand it over to you to kind of little synopsis about you and the brand.
Sure, absolutely. So, for me, J. London is all about cigars that, like you said, I want to put out cigars that are top quality. It stemmed from a passion of being a consumer of the cigar industry first and foremost. And I think that, that is somewhat common nowadays, where you have a lot more people entering from a consumer driven. This was also done after I'd also been on the retail side, after I had become a collector of rare cigars. And so even more so than just being like, oh, I like cigars, let me make my own cigar. There was a much deeper understanding of the industry, what the consumers liked, people's palates. I had learned to pair people's palates very well after running shops, owning my own shop inside of an exotic car club in Houston, Texas. I was traveling to London twice a year for rare cigar auctions, and thus J. London came about. Jonathan, my first name, London, my favorite city. And so there was always special moments over in London. And so then that got me featured in Cigar Journal, Cigar and Spirits magazine. And then only after all that, people pushing me, they're like, all right, you need to make your own cigar. And I was like, man, I really wasn't gung-ho about it at first. And now it's changed my life. But that was 10 years ago. And up until 5 years ago, you had to know me to get a J. London. So we only started going nationwide 5 years ago. And now we're in 23 states. We're in Dominican Republic, South Africa, Canada. In fact, I have to catch a flight tomorrow morning to Canada, to the western part of Canada. I'll be doing events in Calgary and Winnipeg.
Excellent. Wow. So, you went from one extreme to the other, which was I like smoking, I like collecting, to, I want to make cigars now. And, I think that you took that passion that you had from the collection side, being a consumer, and really showcases in your blends and what you do, because your blends kind of are an array. They're not going to blow your palate away, but they're going to blow your palate with flavor.
Thank you. Yes, everything it has that artistry background is what I like to say. I want, for example, the Gold Series. That was based on wanting to make a current production cigar that smoked more like the vintage aged cigars that I'd come to love, that were just well-rounded, balanced, savory, had these subtle nuances to it. And so I think we were able to accomplish that and have that creamy, elegant, velvety experience with the Gold Series. And then with the Ripper, which is what you're smoking, that cigar is just absolutely delicious. Again, very smooth, savory. When I'm blending, working with the master blenders on fine tuning and getting these blends, we're really focusing on sweet, salty, savory. No sour, no bitter. I like to hit cigars that hit more in the front of the mouth. They're very flavorful, but they're not going to fatigue your palate, right? Where some of these heavy cigars with extra earth or leather notes can be fatiguing. Don't get me wrong, we have some strong, full cigars, but I still feel that the smoke quality is a cleaner. Tasha, good to see you on here, and thank you very much for a great comment about the Gold Series. And so we're always, that's what I'm always trying to do is I want to have clean, flavorful cigars that are going to invigorate the palate versus fatiguing the palate.
I get it. There's so much about what you put out there, what you said, that sweet, the savory, that umami that just comes that you work with in the cigars. And I think a lot of people that I've talked to, I don't think they quite understood that, especially with the Gold Series, that they were expecting something else. I'm like, no, this is really kind of a homage to cigars of the past. And you put the Gold Series out in multiple different sizes that provide your palate with something a little bit different depending on which size you're smoking from there. From small and compact that does pack a bit more of a punch to the larger size that's just mild and clean and neat and really gets the drool factor going.
Daniel, I'm glad that you brought that up, because with only having the Gold Series blend for over for 7-8 years, we only started with two sizes. We blended it in a Lonsdale size, and then we had a Robusto. Eventually, we added out different Vitolas, but every time that we added a new Vitola of the Gold Series, it would take a minimum of 9 months and sometimes up to a year just to come out with that one new size. Because I was doing for every single one is, after getting the samples rolled, aged a minimum 3 months, then I'd bring them up to the U.S. and have them tested in the Northeast, in Arizona, Nevada area, and then in Texas, right? So you have low humidity, almost no humidity, all the way to much more humid in Texas, and then kind of middle about in the Northeast, although granted our summers can get a little humid too. But, and I had people who I trusted and were testing, and all of them had to sign off on, if even one person dissented, then we had to make some fine tuning adjustments. So for example, the Bellicoso took a year to come out with, but the goal with each of those sizes was that they had the same general Gold Series experience, velvety, creamy, smooth, but then within that, there would be other nuances. So for example, the box press Robusto, which we will finally be coming back out with early next year actually it'd be probably spring of next year. That has an extra leaf of Lajero, both the box press Robusto and the box press Churchill. And so there was just these little things that we did, adjustments made along the line, so that no matter what size of the Gold Series you're smoking, yes, you get that core element, but we actually made it a very diverse blend within the line.
I get it. And so, as you went through that fire at Ventura's on there, and so and that was where most of what the Gold Series was stored at.
Yeah.
All of it. Oh,
so the William Ventura factory.
Oh my goodness.
Right. Of course, it impacted myself. It impacted Robert Caldwell, Matt Booth, Henderson at the time, Henderson Ventura, the younger brother who has Adventura, and it was obviously a very challenging time. We lost everything. We had over 50,000 Gold Series cigars. Hey, William, looking forward to being in Winnipeg in a few days. Can't wait to meet you. But we had over 50,000 aged over a year, because my goal was to age every Gold Series over a year. And we had tripled our business the year before. So we were not able to, it took us, years to kind of build up to that. But we were there, and then bam, then knocks you out. But you can give up or you can keep on going. And so I called my wife, I called my mentor. And after that, I was like, all right, let's keep moving forward. And then a little while later, we came out with the telephone booth, which was already in the works. The Ripper was already in the works, but we didn't have any of them out. And that, it was character building. We're still not 100% back. Like I said, we don't even have box press yet that we had before, Bellicoso, but we're going to bring those out next year and be back to full capacity. Weber Ventura, who is the older brother, he is an amazing caretaker, and he runs the factory. He's been running it for the past 5 years since he left Davidoff. He was actually the right hand to Eladio Diaz at Davidoff. Of course, for those who don't know, Eladio was the master blender at Davidoff for over 25 years. And so Weber is absolutely amazing, and he makes some of the top cigars in the market, including J. London Gold Series, and we're working on some new blends, including some Maduros, so some sun-grown Maduros and a whole new line. So
Gold Series Maduro is something is that what I'm hearing?
That's in the works, but that's been in the works for a long time. Okay. We unfortunately, the Gold Series blend in general is so dialed in that we've tried numerous different wrappers and just didn't get what I was looking for up to my standard of excellence for when I'm envisioning a Gold Series Maduro. So maybe by the end of next year, but we'll see. I'm going to be spending a lot more time in the Dominican. I'll be down there next after I get back from Canada, just home for a week, and then in Pennsylvania, and then I'll be down in the Dominican, and then in November I'll also be there in December, be there in January. So I plan on spending a lot of time to try to find that right blend for the Gold Series Maduro, and in the meantime have a new line that'll be coming out next year that will have a sun-grown blend and a Maduro blend. And we already have the Maduro down, and we actually have the sun-grown down. So we got to get into which sizes, do the testing on the Vitolas, and then go with boxes, bands. And sometime next year, we're going to have something that'll be in the $12, $14 range for those states that don't have ridiculous taxes. And
the boss lady wants to know when you're coming back to Texas.
Yes. That's a good question. Actually, I was on a phone call earlier today about planning an event in Houston in early February before rodeo season in Houston.
There you go. All right. So, when you were coming up, like you said, you kind of already have the idea down prior to when you're going to start making it. So with the Ripper series, did you know you wanted to work with Jesus and the Martinez crew before you came down with it, or was it just something that happened to work out?
So I knew that I had wanted to work with Jesus for years. He somebody I highly respected. He's always welcomed me into his store with open arms. Some very fond memories with him and his team, whether, dancing bachata, merengue. My wife will go up with me. We're hanging out and we're drinking some rum or whiskey and hanging out after hours, or I'll meet people in the city, or I'll have them come meet me there. And it's just such a wonderful time. And I really wanted to be able to just share with more people about Jesus Martinez, because he's known in New York, he certainly deserves a much bigger recognition than, let's say, he's maybe gotten so far. He's also a very kind, giving man. He's given so much back to the community, both, like, for example, Dominicans in New York, but also Dominicans back in the Dominican Republic. He's just truly a giving man, and also a very talented master blender. And so it was a lot of fun. We worked on 6 months on the Ripper blend, and I had the design concept in mind. And so we were specifically blending this cigar to be the Ripper, right? And so that dagger pierces through one side of the band, comes out the other side of the band. And then there's also the, Big Ben, Dates of the Murders, right? It's a much darker band, packaging than the Gold Series per se. But that was kind of the point. I wanted to push the envelope because people had only known that I'd done the Gold Series before. And so I wanted to show them some more of my creativity. And I was able to work with some great artists who brought my vision to life as far as the band design, box design went. And it all works out well. I mean, that cigar is absolutely delicious, the blend. And we're going to be coming out with 2 other sizes, a Toro and Fat Robusto. The Fat Robusto is going to be a shorter Robusto, but larger ring gauge, and really excited about that.
I had talked to you prior to this coming out, well, like a year prior to it coming out, when you were you're like, hush, 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 hush on that. But you're also telling me that you had an idea about making this the Ripper, a continuation series moving forward. Is that still something in the works of?
Absolutely.
Of going forward with another, outside of the 2 new sizes coming in, but moving forward into it, something in that this is boom. You have the Gold Series, the Ripper Series, the Phone Booth Series.
Yes, exactly. Because for me, we have all parts of the city, right? So every city has the high-end society, which is the Gold Series. Then you have the street level artistry series, telephone booth series line that we have. And then every city's got a dark side. And so the dark side's the Ripper side.
Oh, excellent. My man, yeah. I love the Ripper. Like this is a fantastic smoke. It's one of those that always seems to, when you don't know what to smoke, it hits the spot just because of that sweet and salty component to the cigar, where you get to it and you're like, very good, and then you're like, ooh.
That savoriness just hits right for real general verbiage, savory. But yeah, like I get like a stone fruit, dark stone fruits, some little hints of cedar in there. There's some spice, it was a beautiful blend, and it's been fantastic, and I love smoking them.
And of course, rays are square,
and they do a very good job with construction.
And they do a fantastic job. Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking a cigar that is, $12.99, like Robusto size. That's at this point, that's right in that sweet spot for a lot of people. Obviously sometimes things get a little tougher economically and everything, but that's something that's not going to break the bank, and you're going to get loads of flavor and deliciousness.
Oh yeah. So with the phone booth series, what was the idea behind the concept of coming up with we're just the different colored phone booths, but each one they're their own complete different cigar in each one. It's almost as if it's pink or it's yellow or red or blue, but it's almost like it's its own separate line
Mm.
for each one, each different color.
Yes. No, that's a great question. So I actually had a mental block where I'd only had the gold series. And so trying to come up with the gold series, sun grown, gold series, Maduro, I was just putting so much pressure on myself and being so particular that I just felt like I was stuck. And I mean, I was stuck for like year plus. And because with the gold series, I had just such this clear vision of exactly what I wanted to accomplish, what I wanted the profile to be like. And so for me, the telephone booth series was a way for me to get out of my own head and to just go back to having fun with it and the creativity of it and just seeing what happens. And so working with a different factory for that series, a new factory, the Tejada factory, which they're 4 generations of growing tobacco, processing tobacco. And I was the first one to bring cigars from their factory to the US. Right? It's a very, very small factory. I'm very hands-on there. And so because I am able to be very hands-on there, it was the perfect fit for me to work as much time as I needed with the master blender and with the family. And so that way, by putting, 12 different blends, right, I was able to kind of get my mind from being stuck and able to end up creating some really delicious blends out of it, right? And so it's worked out very well, and it was the perfect thing that I needed because it was the telephone booth that then got me to the Ripper and everything else. So it's been a lot of fun, and we still have 5 more to go in the series. The series has taken a lot longer than I originally thought, but that's more on me sometimes, not rushing stuff, or, if a blend needs another month or 2 beyond the 3 months, so be it. And just they come out when they come out.
What was the turning point for you when you decided that this isn't going to be kind of like a friend of, we're friends, I give you a cigar I make, but like I want the rest of the world to enjoy this. What was that turning point for you?
That's a good question. I certainly was very, I'd say, proud of what was accomplished with the Gold Series, and I was selling it just in my own shop in Houston, inside the Exotic Car Club. And we had people from all over the world coming in there. I mean, we hosted the 2013 NBA Star parties for Shaq, for Kenny Smith, for Lala. First cigar smoked in our cigar lounge was Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top and me. He was at our lounge and he wanted to smoke a cigar, and the lounge wasn't even, the cigar bar ventilation wasn't even in yet. But I'm like, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, definitely, we're gonna smoke, right? So I was getting to meet all these people, and all these people were enjoying the cigars, and I was still, though, just as long as you knew me, yeah, right, I'd ship anywhere. But it was ultimately after the car club closed. They had a new owner, and he ran it into the ground, unfortunately, the social arm of it. And I was back in Pennsylvania. I was close to family, grew up here in the Northeast. And I was just like, where is this going to go? And my mentor, he said, I really believe in you. I know you can take this nationwide. This is, it's a damn good cigar. It's very, compete with everything out there on the market. And he loaned me the money. And I said, all right, let's do this. And never looked back. And Then a year later, he loaned me 4 times as much money and paid him back that too, and just kept on going.
That's awesome. I love those types of stories. That essentially what you had was a house blend. That if you're part of the club or you're in or you know me, you get. But you knew you had something good, and I'm glad that you took your mentor's advice and really getting out there and letting the world enjoy that Gold Series, because it is a really special cigar that I think that if people took the time when they smoked it and just slowed down and really took in the subtle nuances and the complexities of what's going through that cigar, it would be probably one of their all-time favorite cigars that they could smoke, right? Because it's so good, and the dynamics of that cigar are just, it makes me happy just to even talk about it and smoke, because I really love the Gold Series.
Thank you. And you know what? Thankfully, you're not the only one who feels that way. I was at a store in South Carolina the other week doing an event, and one of the buyers for this store, he pulled me aside and he's like, dude, I smoked your cigar against another Connecticut cigar that's $10-15 more per cigar. And he goes, yours won. Like, you know, and it's not just him. Shar out in Fuego Cigars out in Las Vegas, he had it, said my Lancero, Gold Series Lancero is the best Lancero in his humidor. Other people, made some really strong positive comments, and it's truly appreciated to be recognized, for that. And I put my heart and soul into it, and we spend a lot of time in developing that. 6 months as well, but I was very purposeful in that blending of it, and it's really deep and an honor that it gets received as well as it does. And I'm still always grateful anytime somebody smokes it and tells me it's a damn good cigar.
It is a damn good cigar. It's one of those that it should be in everybody's humidor, because it is an any time of day cigar, not morning or night. It's just it's one of those sticks that just it hits the spot whenever you're looking for that itch, that spot to get filled. It hits it every time. And like, it's no miss. I have them in my don't think humidor, where if I don't want to think about what I'm smoking, I don't have to do any work with content on certain cigars. I just want to smoke something that I know is going to be consistent and good, and I can just relax and chill. I know if I put my hand in that humidor and pull out a Gold Series, I'm set. I'm like, this perfect. No thinking about it. It's just that good.
I like the way you worded that.
I put in so much time working on the content that I do that I don't really get to sit back and enjoy cigars I want to smoke. And so when I get those opportunities where I can smoke something I want, I've got about 6 or 7 different brands in there that I like, that I shouldn't say I like, I love. And that I know that it doesn't matter which one I pull, I don't have to think about it. I'm just going to enjoy it. And it's going to be I can just chill out here. And the Gold Series is one of those. It's a staple in that. Don't think about it, humidor.
Thank you. Yeah, Weber Ventura has done an amazing job taking care of that blend since his father passed that over to him. And he's been an amazing protector of it. And, I'm always down there. My wife and I live down there part-time too. So I'm in Santiago often, and Tamborill's 15-20 minutes away. So I'm there often, always just trying to make sure we can maintain that excellence.
What was I going to say? I had some. Oh, yeah. So do you still go to classic cigar auctions? and still purchase and buy, or do you just now you're just a collector if you come across something?
I don't anymore. I do kind of miss it. I do occasionally. I collect a few, but now I'm smoking through my collection's not as big as it used to be. I'm smoking through or have smoked through a fair amount of it. All right, because part of when I was collecting, then I was also procuring for my shop inside of the Exotic Car Club, and so you could walk in the humidor and we had cigars as far back as 1901. Right. So it was like historical level, pre-embargo Cuban, could also have been Macanudos when they were good back in 1960 and, made in Jamaica. Right. So there's a whole bunch of different things, old school Avos, Tatuaje blacks in the jar, the original Tat blacks, stuff like that. But now I've smoked through a lot of that at this point, and I have a lot of fond memories and try to take photos when I can so I can scroll back through and see all the great cigars I've enjoyed over the years.
When the cart club closed, did you take all that inventory with you, or did it stay?
I thankfully was able to get it out. I got a text from the manager at 4 p.m. saying they were going to close that night because the owner had not been paying the rent of $42,000 a month. And he decided not to pay the rent anymore, and they were going to get the doors locked on him. So I had to rush over, grab everything. He screwed me out of tens of thousands of dollars of sales that had been rung through the register, and I never got paid on. But life goes on.
No, that's fantastic. I've not been one that has smoked a lot of vintage cigars out there. I've had a few. It is definitely it's a different experience, and having to really kind of, it's almost like having to reset your palate as you're smoking that, just because the way that it smokes, how it's aged, the differences in how that chemical composition of how the tobacco burns 60 years later. It's a different experience out there. Not one that, for me personally, not one that I've really been a big fan of. I really try not to go back and smoke a whole lot of stuff that's older than 20 years. But, again, in the right atmosphere with the right people, why not? I mean,
and that's where it was. It was about special occasions. Like you could walk in my humidor and you're getting to buy a piece of history that you get to smoke that night, right? And also, a lot of times you're pairing the cigars differently. You were in this lavish place, right? So it had its time and place, like you said, and certainly some of those pairings really helped bring out what was left in some of those cigars. But a lot of my clients back then, they wanted to be able to say they smoked a piece of history, right? So it's very few times that something that is a consumable has been around for 60, 80, 100 years, and you can still enjoy it in its original fashion. And, it was meant to be smoked, and they get to smoke it, right? And so now they own a piece of history, and that's a story that they have with them for the rest of their life. And that's what it's about. And
I love that. I always say they're meant to be smoked. There are a lot of people out there, when they get something that's not lavish or expensive, or outside of their normal price range, they tend to hoard it, or they need a reason to smoke it. And I've always been one that these are meant to be smoked. If you want a reason, you're alive. That's a good enough reason as any to
bingo.
Is a good enough reason as any to smoke it. I mean, if you wait for a reason, or you wait for an event, or you wait for something that, all right, I got to smoke it, then you'll find it, you'll make up an excuse when that time comes to not smoke it. So just do it, enjoy it. That's what it's there for.
Yes.
They're to be enjoyed. You know, when I moved from New Mexico up to here, and I packed all my cigar stuff in, I you know, a lot of it just it got packed, and so and a lot of it's 20 plus years of cigars that I had and that I forgot I had because they just kind of, you know, it's like it sat in the humidor there. And then when I moved, it came with me. And I said, you know, I'm going to organize all my cigars and I want to organize them all by wrappers. And I want, if I'm feeling like a San Andreas, this Tupperware will be all San and so forth. But I found so many cigars in there that I bought 5 or 10 packs of back in the early 2000s that I forgot I even had, and so I'm like, I gotta smoke some of these because you'll never see any of these cigars anymore because they just don't make them or those brands are no longer around anymore. Like I had the 2005 the Opus X Double Oscuro, which was the African Cameroon Oscuro and the Dominican Cameroon Oscuro, and they only made 1,000 of them, and they were all Lancero, and they've been sitting in a box for almost 20 years. And I'm like, I gotta smoke this because I'm like, I looked this up, the price tag on the cellophane, and they were back in 2005, and they were $35 back then. So
Right. That was yes, and you hit on it. Like ultimately, most cigars, let's say, they may benefit from a couple years of age. I've had some Padrones, which are already have aged before the release, but I had some Padrones with 5-10 years that were, you could definitely tell a difference, and they benefited from aging. But there it gets to a point where cigars, certainly just like wine, right? They had its peak and then it starts to go down, and there may be a few hills and valleys in there, and but they're meant to be enjoyed. And I did adopt your philosophy, and that's where I was able to smoke through a lot of what I have. I still have a little collection, but yeah, it was something that I wanted to experience while they were still in their prime, because there certainly were cigars that I smoked over the years that were historical level, but they were well past their prime. And you just had to appreciate it for the historical aspect more than anything else at that point. But, few years, sure, let it round out. But, I'd say, yeah, 10, 20 years, depends what it is. Certain tobaccos age better than others.
I can't tell you that did not age very well. I had three of them, and now they're just collection pieces. I wouldn't smoke the other two. It just,
Yeah.
It wasn't like what I remembered, because it brought back memories smoking that cigar. And I'm like, I remember this. It was so good. And then I smoked it. I'm like, I wish I would have remembered that I had those in there instead of letting them sit for, almost 20 years.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, especially, for example, Cameroon, right, being so delicate, and right, it's a thin leaf. It's already, is very nuanced tobacco as it is, kind of like what happened with the Partagas 150s that was released in 1995, and then the Partagas 160s. The Partagas 150s are well past their prime now. People pay over $100 dollars for one, and a lot of, if they can still get them, but they're well past their prime, where the 160s were, much more flavorful still. But, again, everything goes, has an expiration date, including us.
Is William there talking about how much he loves the Gold Series. It's his favorite Claro Shade cigar of all time. He loves the smoke and the texture, the complexity, and he loves it in the Lancero and the Robusto. Yes, William, I think you are correct in that. It is, I think, one of the all-time best, Claro Shade cigars you'll ever find.
Thank you, William, for that comment. Really appreciate it. And I love the Lancero, for example. I smoke the Lonsdale was the Vitol. We blended it in. The Lancero, right, is obviously somewhat similar, but they smoke different, and they have their own unique characters. And then on the large ring gauge, I go for the fat Robustas where I'm at on that, because I do occasionally smoke Cuban cigars as well, and I used to smoke more of them before they jacked up the prices ridiculously. And I always liked the Romeo Julieta wide Churchill, and so that was a 5x55, so we made a 5x56 fat Robusto Gold Series that was inspired by the Cuban Romeo Julieta.
That's nice. I see, William. His collection of the Gold Series was big, but now he's getting down to only a few left. But he's glad that he's now able to pick them up in his local shop there in Winnipeg. So
yes,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm gonna hopefully be meeting him on. I'll be at his local shop on Wednesday, from what I understand. So, I'm so excited to be able to go up to Canada. I've not been able to. I've not done it yet. This is the first year that J Londons are sold in Canada, and so being in Western Canada is going to be an awesome tour. I know it's already a little brisk out there, but it's all right. It'll be with a lot of great brothers and sisters of the Leaf, and it's going to be a great time. And I'm bringing some biddies with me as well.
There you go, William. I have to agree. I do find that it is better than the Davidoff. By far, I would concur.
So he brings up a point that I want to hit on. So Davidoff to me was at its peak in the late 90s and early 2000s. Now this is purely my opinion, right? Like everybody's got their own. And the people that were involved with Davidoff then were Eladio Diaz and William Ventura, Henke Kellner, right? And none of those people are with Davidoff anymore. And Weber was, again, like mentored by Eladio and also Henke. And now we have the Mr. London by Eladio Diaz. We have the Gold Series, right, which was blended with William and is being, produced by Weber. So literally 3 of Davidoff's top people that are all making J London cigars. Obviously they make other cigars too, but they making J London's is just such an honor, and it's so cool to be able to have what I felt was the old school Davidoff, and then me being able to put my twist on it, right, and make it into a really boutique crafted experience.
Yeah, when Eladio and everybody started leaving Davidoff, or decided to seek other opportunities in that HR email, the quality of the Davidoff cigars clearly went down. The blends went in a different direction I was not a fan of, and I think that it became a good thing for the industry, because you get to enjoy these legends manufacturing cigars pretty much for anybody, and they're out there sharing that knowledge. Like you brought up the Mr. London. I love the Mr. London right now. I said it in my intro. Right now, it is a top 3 cigar for me for this year. It is pricey, but it's an experience that I don't mind paying that price for. I've restocked twice on it because it's so good. Where has this been my whole life? And it's so packed. It's so packed with so many different tobaccos, and it's at times you feel like your palate's receiving a flavor overload, and then it all comes together, and you're just,
Thank you.
I thought I could go on to a cigar.
Yeah. What was really neat about the Mr. London, I actually knew a lot of you for 10 years. So it was really fitting that 10 years, in December of this year is going to be 10 years that J. London as a company has existed and that J. London Cigars have existed. And it was 10 years ago where I was in Santiago, right by the monument in the center of the city. I was at a steakhouse slash cigar bar slash nightclub, which I think is a fantastic combination, by the way. Dominicans always find ways of combining different things, like they'll do car washes with restaurants and wine bars, or lots of other things too. But so I was there at this ranch, it was called, and it was William Ventura's family that was there, and it was Eladio Diaz's family there. And to honor me, celebrate with me, it was more like that. Let's go celebrate with me of the launching of the J. London Gold Series. And so to be able to have a line, a limited edition with Don Eladio 10 years later, and and it's not just him, it's his family, like Manny Diaz, I've known for 10 years, I consider a friend, who's very involved in that as well. And so to be able to have that limited edition with them, we're currently working on what will be the next size of the Mr. London next year that'll come out, because the Super Robusto, once it's gone, it's gone. But it was just such an honor to work with them. It's been a crazy journey that I could never have imagined.
I love the band for London. It's so unique and it's eye-catching that you have the long band that covers up just the surprise underneath when you peel that, and it's such a treat and such a delicious cigar. Was that something that you went to Eladio with, that you wanted to just pack as much tobacco in there as possible, or was this just an idea that he had that he thought he could make work?
I'm sorry, you broke up there for a second. Ask that again.
Oh, so when you were coming up with the Mr. London, was this an idea that you had on wanting to pack all those tobaccos into one cigar, or was this something that Eladio had kind of put into a concept and thought that he could master it down for you?
So twofold. On the blend side, Eladio really was intricate in putting those 7 different tobaccos together. And for me, the Mr. London side of it came about with a friend of mine years ago had made the artwork that's on the band underneath, and he had done it to honor me. And he takes old magazines from the 40s, 50s. Hey, Am, how are you? Glad to see you on. And so he cuts out these magazines, these pictures, images, combines them together, digitizes them, then he puts his own touch, right? So he presented me years ago with this artwork, and probably 4 years ago, I want to say. And I told him, someday I want to honor you, honor your gift, and we're going to do something special with it, with the design. And so from that came about me wanting to do this special limited edition series, working with different master blenders, showcasing, unique, blends from them. And so the first one is with Eladio, and so we call it the introduction to Mr. London. And then I'll work with other master blenders and doing other limited editions for this series. And Mr. London's going to go on this journey per se. But the introduction to Mr. London, that blend will always be, Eladio and just showcasing, some of his unique talents and abilities. Because, man, to pack 7 different tobaccos in there, right, and the complexity of it, the nuances of it, right, and that's why people need to retrohale, right? Like, every J. London cigar is created for people to retrohale, right? Like, you're missing out. It's just like if you walked into your mom's kitchen and she was baking something and you couldn't smell. Yeah, you could taste, but you couldn't smell. Like you're missing so much of it. It's the same reason we nose our scotches or a bourbon or a wine, right? To engage all of it, right? You know, smoking premium cigars is a full sensory experience, right? First you see it, then you feel it, right? Then, right? It's everything all together. So tasting it and smelling it right through the smoke through your nose is just so important. I feel that so many people still miss out on in order to get the nuances of what premium cigars are all about.
I talked to you after I smoked that Mr. London for the first time, and I told you that I felt that the retro showcased that San Andreas binder, like the way that when you hear people talk about San Andreas, and I'm just like the retro showcased all of that flavor from that San Andreas, so where it wasn't so much palate wise, but through the nose, it hit everything perfect. I mean, that's why I gone back and kept doing rebuys of fivers, because I was just like, man, this cigar is so good, and it for me, it came out of nowhere, and it wasn't anything you told me about when I talked to you in the past, so it hit me as a complete shock, because usually when you tell me you got something dropping, I'm
Yeah.
I'm one of the first ones in line to go buy it because I love what you put out, and so when I got that in the Palladium box from Luxury Cigar Club, I'm like, well, now okay, and I sat on it for like a month before I smoked it, and I kicked myself I didn't smoke it right away, but because I probably would have ended up buying a heck of a lot more than I've already bought.
No, yeah, no, and I'm grateful you bring up Luxury Cigar Club. They've been a fantastic supporter of J. London Cigars over the years, and that relationship even came about because of Billy and Gus of Viva La Vida Cigars, and I'm a fan of Viva La Vida cigars, right? And so I was at a local shop here in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and Billy and Gus came in with the rep for the area, and I ended up sitting with them, geeking out, and just was immediately became a fan of their cigars, and in turn gifted them a cigar, and they smoked the Gold Series, and I forget which Vitolas they smoked, and then they reached out to Luxury and said, you guys got to check out J. London, and it's been, so I'll forever be grateful to them that literally another cigar brand, and when the owners of it were supporting me, and that's always such a humbling thing for me that I'll never forget that.
That's awesome. It's awesome. And of course, Michelle there making sure that we continue to stroke that ego of yours a little bit more with how great what you put out is.
I just look for me. It's about thank you, Michelle. I always appreciate your years of support. Thank you. Look, for me, like I said, it all goes back to just my passion for cigars, right? Like the craftsmanship, the quality, the all of it, the details, the full sensory, right? And so I do my best to not ever put anything out that I'm not going to smoke and enjoy myself. We're not always perfect, but we do strive for excellence.
And William there taking it back a little bit there, that he's happy to see the Venturas and the Kellners out there opening their own factories up and really sharing that love of what they do with everybody now, instead of their limitations of what they were doing with Davidoff. Davidoff's loss is a gain for all of us in the community, and those of us that love cigars and love history and love the the romancing of the historic families in tobacco, and for them to be able now to share that with all of us, and and to work with you and to create magic with what you already have going on. It's a great thing, and it's good for the community and the industry, in my personal opinion.
I 100% agree with you. I learned so much sitting with William Ventura, Weaver Ventura, Eladio, his son Manny. Like I'm always learning, right? And so if I'm always learning and they're always working with different tobaccos, or they're trying different things, and we're just bouncing concepts or ideas off of each other, and it's just the consumer benefits, right? Like, to me, this is right. There was the cigar boom in the 90s, right? And that was a boom from a sales aspect, and it became really hyped and popular. But there was actually very few companies who were doing it well. And the ones that were doing it well are still around to this day, like Fuente that we talked about earlier. But now I feel is the best time that you could ever be as a cigar consumer, from the standpoint of the number of quality cigars that are out there. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of BS out there too, and you got to still be careful. But there's a much broader spectrum, and it's not just from a few companies. There's a lot more smaller boutique brands out there, or micro brands, whatever phrase that you want to use, and they're getting to work with some really amazing people, and that are helping to bring whatever their visions are, their palates are like, and then the consumer is benefiting from it. And ultimately, yeah, I own a cigar brand and I make cigars, but I smoke cigars too because I enjoy them, right? And I'm a consumer first, and so it's an awesome time to be a cigar smoker.
But I think that's important to tap on there, is because I've talked to a lot of small and boutique brands out there, and they've always said that I'm a consumer first. And I think that's why there's cigars that they put out are so good, and why they've had this longevity over the last 4 or 5 years, is because they're also thinking about what they like and what they would buy, and what the consumer out there is interested in. And to put that into their brands like you do is like, would I smoke this? Probably not. There are probably people that would. Okay, I want to create something that I would smoke as a consumer. This is what I like, and I know that if I like it, a lot of other people are going to like it too, and integrate that into what you do as a brand.
Well, and you're right, different strokes for different folks, right? But ultimately, kudos to you, because I know that you really focus on a lot of boutique brands, right? And so, weeding through all of them and finding all the gems, that are in there, and making that a focus and a passion of yours. Thank you for doing that, right? Because, certainly that's, some of us smaller brands, we don't always have the same marketing budgets to go buy pages of ads in certain places, right? And, so, you doing this work, and like you said, and you alluded to this earlier, right? Like, you have a humidor that is, you just grab in and you can enjoy, but then there's another humidor where you really have to focus, and you got to analyze it, because you want to give the best product you can, the best feedback, the best analysis to all your viewers or your followers. And, that's, you really are dedicated to wading through that whole small and boutique brands, and finding the gems, and bringing awareness to that for the consumer.
Wow, thank you. That was the focus when I started the content in 2019, which was to get people to go to the other side of the humidor, put their blinders on and forget about the big fancy displays, but go to the back. There are gems back there, but you got to be willing to try them. And, and for the vast majority of the almost 25 years that I've smoked cigars, it's been, I'd say, 18 to 20 of them have been really strictly small batch, small brand, boutique brand cigars, because I always enjoyed, there was always something different about what they were putting out and what they were creating. And I just felt like they never get any love. Nobody showcases any of that stuff. And so when I scrubbed my Instagram page from being a personal page with now smoking photos to no, I really think people need to know about some of these brands out there. They're missing out. You know, I went all in on it, and it was hard because not a lot of people cared like they do now. 5 years later, now people pay attention and they listen. But 5 years ago, man, I had a hard time getting people to try, and it's like, nah, I'm not really interested. Nah, then I'm like, I'm telling you, you're missing out on so much good out there. You're the flavor profilings are so different and unique. The different uses of unconventional tobaccos are fantastic. All these things nothing wrong with the big brands and the legacy and heritage brands out there. But I feel, in my personal opinion, I'm getting a better quality smoke from a brand like yours than I am from a bigger brand. It's how I feel, because I feel when I smoke a cigar like yours compared to a heritage brand, I feel different. I feel like I'm getting a much fuller experience. The enjoyability factor, which is, with all the rating scales, enjoyability is always up there. The enjoyability factor is a 10 straight across. It's a 10. And I don't get that with most of the big brand stuff out there. And a lot of it ends up just kind of all tasting the same to me. There's nothing different or unique with the blends. But yours, everything is just different and unique. Whether it be the Gold Series, which we talked about, every size provides me with something different, some amazing experience, some different taste that I don't get from a different size. There's just something that's just completely different and unique about it that I don't get that from the heritage side of things. So you're out there doing something amazing, and you're putting that your genius brain to work to come up with something to create that not only do you like, but I think is something that a lot of small brands strive for, is to achieve that overall success like you've achieved, where you've got this cigar that's your core line. It's a staple. Everybody knows about it and everybody loves it.
It's like you can taste the heart and soul, right? Like, that's really, for me, what it's about, and where boutiques really shine. Because, when you get to very large size of a company, you can't use every tobacco, because not every tobacco is available in that quantity, or the accountants, that really run the business, tell you that tobacco is too expensive. And so you got to use a different priming or a different leaf. And so, for us boutiques, right, we're not beholden to that. We're like, let's just put our best foot forward, right? My name's on it, right? The J&J London, it's my name. So I'm going to just put my best foot forward, and I hope enough people like it, that I like it. And, I know I can be proud of it, and hopefully it gets embraced within the community. And, I would love it. I'm grateful to all the retailers as well that are the ones that are willing to, because not every retailer either is, willing to sell boutiques or really knows how to share about boutiques or introduce the consumer to it. So it takes, your side of it to educate the consumer, and then the consumers to go into the shops and ask for J. Londons, ask for their other favorite boutique brands, and then to buy and support those, because, some of these retailers, they'll just sit on, the legacies and look, I understand, having run the retail side, wanting to keep the doors open, and some sell itself because of their name, right? But there's when you can earn, for me, when I was running a shop, I wanted to get to know my customer's palate, right? I wanted to earn their trust, and I earned their trust by asking them questions, getting to know them, and then making recommendations, interpreting what they said, and then pairing their palates to the best of my ability. And I was able to earn their trust, and I became very successful doing that. And so I take that same mentality of wanting to continually earn the consumer's trust now as a brand owner. But it all started for me on that shop side and being willing to try all different cigars and being willing to talk about them and not just go, oh yeah, that's over there, but actually giving the customer a full, experience and opening their mind and sharing little nuggets of information every time they came in. And over the course of time, their knowledge base went from this to this. And, their lives were forever enriched in the cigar world because of it. And to me, that's an opportunity that I think, some shops are amazing at, and other shops could, really strive to do better at, and that they would actually get more loyal customers, more loyal followings by carrying more boutique brands and just sharing about them.
Do you remember the first cigar you smoked?
Yeah, I do. I was flying back with my dad from Las Vegas. We were involved in fashion scene when I was still in high school. I was 17 years old, and I'm flipping through a magazine, and I see an advertisement for 10 cigars and a small humidor for, I don't know, $20, $30. I'm like, wow, that sounds like a great deal, right? I knew nothing, right? And my dad he'd smoked occasional cigar, but I'd never seen him smoke a cigar. So I said, Dad, can you get that for me? I was about to turn 18 or whatever. So he buys it for me. And so I got those Legacy cigars, and it was a punch. And I was at a friend's house, James. We smoked inside. It was a winter here in the Northeast. His mom smoked cigarettes in his house, so she was okay with us smoking cigars in our house. Right? It was a row home, and I coughed the whole way through because I didn't know any better. And man, I made every mistake in the book when I was first starting out smoking cigars. But yes, it was like a punch robusto or something. And thankfully, I'm hard-headed enough that even though I coughed the whole way through it and probably wasn't smoking it right and all this stuff, I just stuck with it, and it changed my life.
Yeah. I love hearing people's first cigar stories.
How about yours?
It was the day I turned 18, and I skipped school, and I drove 30 miles to the cigar shop in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I walked in and I said, I just turned 18 today. I don't know anything about cigars, but I want to, because I was always fascinated, because in the movies, all the cool bad guys you rooted for smoke cigars, all the cool good guys that you loved smoke cigars. And I was like, that's awesome. Whether you're a good guy or a bad guy, you just cool. And so, So the owner of the shop, his son, and somebody who was in the shop, they took me to the humidor and they picked out 3 cigars for me. And I had no clue how much they cost. So go back into the front, and I brought $100 with me, and I go, is this enough money for these? Because I thought they were an extravagant luxury item.
Yeah.
And he goes, don't worry about it. It's your birthday. He goes, they're on us. If you like them, you'll be back. And I was like, okay. So I lit up the first one, which was a Padron 2000 Natural.
Okay.
And I immediately felt like, yeah, I could do this for a long time. Like the flavor just hit me, the way it tasted, and I was just like, wow, that's so good. But yeah, they gave me, so I had 3 with the Camacho Connecticut and the Oliva Series G Cameroon were the 3 cigars they gave me. I And
Well, they gave you got a better selection on your 18th birthday than I had. I'll tell you that.
well, yeah, those were my three, and then I would always go, like, I'd always drive to Santa Fe just to go to the, like, Saturdays. I'd drive to the cigar shop and go hang out and just go hang out. With everybody in the shop. It was like, it's cool. I was like, wow, this is cool. Like, everybody's like an old person, and I'm a high school. I'm a high school senior. I'm like, who?
Yes.
It's like, but I'm just hanging out with everybody in the shop, smoking and listening to people talk, it was such a great experience. And then from there, I got a job with Reynolds Tobacco with their premium tobacco side that they operated in Santa Fe. So, I was working in the fulfillment center, slugging boxes and packages around, and I'd been there a year. It was like I was in 20, but they had an opening for a QA QC manager, and I said, I'm going to apply for that job. I think I know enough about tobacco. I've smoked a lot of cigars. I hang out with people who are pretty knowledgeable. So I interviewed, and so I went in there, and there were people who applied for that job that were way more qualified. But I just, like, opened up my passion that I have for tobacco, and then they offered me the job, and they're like, it's like, this job involves just not working with the high end cigarette side of things, but also we're taking on cigar brands from Dunhill and Benson and Hedges and a couple of others, and we really, your knowledge of cigars is going to actually help us with this job. And so from there, I got to, I'm 20, 21 years old. I'm traveling to the Dominican and Nicaragua and Honduras.
Wow.
And
what an amazing way to start. Yeah.
And I'm almost like, wow. And I'm checking out all these cigars and checking out tobacco and looking at it and, taking samples. And it was phenomenal. And it was by far one of my favorite jobs I ever had, all the way up until when I got laid off. I love it.
What a way to start! And here you are, still carrying on and doing it, still in the industry in a different way now, and adding so much value to the industry with what you're doing. So that's really awesome, man. You brought me back there. I can relate on everything from the guys in the movies, the villains, the good guys, right? Like, I have a wall in my office that is all black and white photos of all the cool people smoking cigars, right? So everybody from Clint Eastwood to Churchill and Mark Twain and John Wayne, Alphonse Capone, like, it's pretty cool. And so I have that up there because, we both saw some of those same people on in movies, and it's kind of stuck with us, and it's changed your life. And you hit on something, right? You were 18, you're in a cigar lounge, you're the youngest one in there, and there's a bunch of older, more successful people in there. But when you're in a cigar lounge and you know how to smoke, and when I say know how to smoke, I don't mean that you're an expert and know everything, but that you at least are comfortable in how to light a cigar, cut a cigar, hold it, or open-minded enough to want to learn. People really tend to treat you with respect and will kind of take you under their wing. I was actually doing an event in Philadelphia at Smoke and Manayunk this past Saturday, a week ago, I should say. And I meet this Dominican guy who used to actually play professional soccer in Europe, and he's back over here, and he's like, I really want to start my own business. And so I just, middle event, I just sat down with him, and we just talked for a few minutes, and I was like, look, if you sit in a cigar lounge, go to different cigar lounges, meet different people, this is an equalizer. Premium cigars do not care about age, race, religion, right? Socioeconomic backgrounds, it doesn't, right? And you get to meet a lot of good people. You know, all the groomsmen at my wedding were all because of cigar smoke. All my best friends I've met smoking premium cigars.
Yeah, it is one of those social activities that just, they that leads you to connections with people that you just never known, and people who work in different fields. But it I find when I go to a lounge now, and I just hang out, I find that most of the white collared people there, like, they want to talk to me about, I'm a blue collared guy. I work manual labor, and they want to they're more interested in wanting to talk to me and learn about that side of things, because it's not something that they do. They don't get their hands dirty. They're not busting their knuckles every day. They're wearing suits and driving fancy cars, and I love it. I love the experience, and I love just talking and listening and hearing, and like, that's how I got involved in the stock market. Was sitting in a cigar lounge listening to those guys talk stocks and stuff.
Yes.
And when E-Trade was like first coming up in the early 2000s on there, like I was writing all this stuff down, and I opened an E-Trade account, and I took I took some money that I had, and I'm like, these guys were talking about this stuff, and I was like investing, and some of it I got totally hammered on, but some of it is like I made money, like it fund. I made some money where I was able to like fund my habit just a little bit more.
Right.
It's like, where'd you get that money? I was like, well, you talked about that stock, and like I made, it like hit, and I made $1,000 off of it, so I cashed it out, and so, buying cigars instead of buying something that I probably should have useful.
Well, you've turned it into something, so it's all right. But that's a perfect example of what I was talking about, and what same happened to me, right? And that's to me what I get so much joy hanging out at the cigar lounges, is those types of conversations where you have the opportunity to learn something new, and to grow as a person, right? God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So listen twice as good as you talk. And there's certainly people in some cigar lounges who love talking, but and you filter it, and you find what can work for you, and you find people that you're like, all right, this is an authentic person, somebody I can connect with, and they insert these books of knowledge into your life that you then can have forever. And that's really, to me, what cigar smoking is all about.
This year after Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest, we went back to one of the lounges, and I was just sitting there listening to like these white collar executives talking about all the places in the world that they traveled to set up businesses, and what they're doing, and I was like fascinated by like hearing about all of like the guy, like going to India, and it's like, oh man, having to reset my gut to go to India for 3 months and then come back for a month, and it's like I couldn't even like eat regular American food because I would be going right back again, and the food there just tear me up. So I had to just continue eating this terrible food I didn't like just to keep happy, because I was going back for 3 months at a time for 3 years, and I'm just like, wow, geez, that's terrible. Wow.
You get to learn so much about people, sometimes more than you want to learn, but right, people love to share, and but yeah, it's a way to see the world through the eyes of somebody else, right? And we can all benefit from looking at the world through the eyes of others, and seeing life from their perspective, and taking from it what we can, and having more empathy or care or connection towards others, and that really is the embodiment of brothers of the leaf, sisters of the leaf, and that's why they're really community centers all over the world. And I've smoked, in places all over the world, and it's never disappointed me. It didn't matter whether I was in London, Dominican Republic, the United States, or this coming, tomorrow, this week in Canada. I have no doubt that in Canada, I'm going to have amazing conversations with very interesting people, and I'm going to learn something new.
And if you're ever feeling lost or lonely when you're traveling, find a cigar lounge, and you'll feel like you never left home.
Bingo.
And you'll always find it. Matt, Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on tonight, talking with us. Man, I loved it. I appreciate you making the time to come on. Anything you'd like to promote before we end out the show?
Just, keep doing what you're doing. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you highlighting the handcrafted consumable art that is boutique cigars, and what J London stands for. And I thank all of you who are watching, listening, just for your support. I can't do this without you. You walk in your local retailer or any shop you visit and you ask for J London, and if they don't have it, it'll help me eventually get in there to and continue to grow the J London brand and get it out there and get the cigars out there, so that I can continue to do what I'm doing and share my passions with others, with all of you. So thank you very much, Daniel. It was a great time. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you so much. Next Monday night is my birthday bash extravaganza, so I hope you all come back and hang out. I got giveaways all stream long. So, come take your hand at trying to win some cigars or some accessories. Got a lot of it. Mimi Palmer from Black Starline Cigars will be rejoining me. You all asked for her to come back, and so I begged her, and she said she'd do it. So thank you, Mimi, for, appeasing the people, because you're a woman of the people out there. So come hang out with us next Monday night for my birthday show. We'll celebrate. It is my actual physical birthday, so makes it even that much better. I'm giving you guys stuff instead of you giving me stuff. I'm giving back to all of you in the community for the last 5 years of all the love and everything. It's my yearly kind of give back show to everybody. So as a big thank you to all of you out there. So that's it for tonight, everybody. Thank you so much. We will see you next week. Jonathan, thank you so much. Take care. Be safe out there. Don't do anything Jonathan and I want to do, because we're sweet and innocent little boys. And we'll see you all later, everybody. Peace.